At that time, I wasn't yet doing an IVC sampling, so it's just the adrenal aldosterone cortisol ratio that we can do. So here you can see that at 0 minute, there is left uh, lateralization, but indeterminate on the uh, stimulation part. So, so because of that sampling, we opted to take out the left adrenal um, of the patient. And here is the pathology report. 3 days ago, the patient, she was lost to follow up for a while. And 3 days ago, she was rushing to my clinic because she found her old record, which I lost in my clinic because that was 1996. And I was so happy to see that the original pathology report came with her. And it showed the yellow, orange in the macroscopic finding with in the macroscopic and microscopic showed expansion of the cortex with increase in the volume of the zona glomerulosa. And we were surprised that the final report was bilateral cortical hyperplasia. Well, the patient went home with spironolactone, potassium chloride tablets, and calcium channel uh, tablets because that's bilateral adrenal problem. So in the interim, I lost her, but she continued to follow up with a cardiologist, and these were her record in the cardiology chart. Along the way, she continued her medications from us, but eventually she stopped her spironolactone because with her repeated tests, her potassium was okay. She has spikes of blood pressure, but mostly controlled. So in 2017, 2018, she was okay until in 2021, the cardiologist started to resume the spironolactone because she's going low until the patient was eventually referred back to us. So when we saw her, she was hypokalemic with symptoms, and we gave her back the potassium, the spironolactone, and the antihypertensive medications. So these were her profile, and eventually the CT scan was done by the doctor, cardiologist, and surprisingly, the right remaining adrenal wasn't identified. I wonder if the nodules that time involuted that was seen in 1996. So in November, just few weeks ago, these were her current medications: spironolactone 50 BID, amlodipine 10 OD, alvedilol 12.5 milligrams BID. Now she's running a good potassium level and BP. So we wanted to check the status of the remaining adrenal, and surprisingly, we didn't get a good ratio. Her creatinine and liver kidney function was normal. So we moved to confirmatory saline test, and we got positive of 29.2 post-infusion plasma aldosterone. So now our final diagnosis is bilateral hyperaldosteronism with unilateral adrenalectomy with recurrence of patient symptomatology, probably due to the fact that she stopped her spironolactone and that the contralateral adrenal did not at all sleep all the way. So let me discuss a bit of hyperaldosteronism and cardiovascular outcomes so you will understand eventually how we manage the patient and what we thought how she will be managed. So this was presented by Professor Yang, that the presentation at the first visit is not any more blood pressure, but more of cardiovascular events. This is because with hyperaldosteronism, the cardiocyte will suffer from oxidative stress, subclinical inflammation, and myocardial fibrosis that will actually be relieved with treatment, whether lowering the circulating hyperaldosteronism or surgical management. Likewise, there is a decrease in aortic distensibility with hyperaldosteronism compared to essential hypertension. Eventually, all this will lead to remodeling of the heart that will lead to eventual cardiovascular system endothelial dysfunction and vascular stiffness and hypertension. So, the unilateral adrenalectomy had been applied to bilateral hyperaldosteronism, and that was presented also by Professor Bill Young in their work. But the first work that I encountered was that of Lela Sukor, our vice president. It was a 51 patients with bilateral sampling who underwent unilateral adrenalectomy. Hypertension was cured in 15% and improved in 20%. But what is important there is decreased diastolic blood pressure, left ventricular mass index improvement, and plasma upright aldosterone and AR ratio normalized. The group of Dr. Young presented 24 patients with bilateral PA, underwent unilateral adrenalectomy. The hypokalemia resolved in 76%, blood pressure control improved in 65%. In our case, we coined a term, systemic hormonal unloading. This is to unload the system with excess circulating hormone by removing the dominant secreting adrenal identified through bilateral adrenal venous sampling. I think this is one importance of doing the sampling so that we can identify which one is more contributing to the systemic circulating aldosterone. So we wrote this case. She's a 47-year-old presenting the symptomatology of PA, and by sampling, she was bilateral. But by CT, she presented with left adrenal tumor. We did not operate on her. She went abroad. She was able to get eplerenone there, but eventually was shifted to spironolactone. With medication, she continued to be having spikes of blood pressure elevation, palpitations, and headache. She was very, very uncomfortable. And she said, Doctora, let's take out the one that is dominant in the sampling. So we took off her left adrenal tumor. On follow-up, the potassium normalized. I have not seen her for quite a while, but the blood pressure normalized without medications, and there was improvement in the quality of life. So the plan on our patient initially is to remove the remaining right adrenal gland because we were worried about the long-term effect on the cardiocyte of the circulating hyperaldosteronism. But with the shared decision with the family opted to have medical therapy because they thought and they think that the patient becoming elderly is incapable of addressing adrenal insufficiency management. So we put her on spironolactone 25 milligrams BID MWF. Sodium is 142. This is the recent one. Potassium 4.2, amlodipine, and calvedolol with a very nice blood pressure control. So let's talk about that, putting patient on medical therapy versus surgery. So the comparison of eplerenone and spironolactone was okay. They are both good in the long-term control of the patient's parameters like the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone, the ratio, and the potassium. But when we look at the comparison of this medical treatment with surgery, still surgery is superior to medical treatment as far as blood pressure control in the long term is concerned. So, but in this patient, in this report, they've shown the CMT or carotid intima media thickness improvement comparing unilateral adrenalectomy and spironolactone in 6 years' time follow-up. Here, they've shown that with adrenalectomy and spironolactone, it is comparable in the improvement of the plasma potassium and sodium at the end of the study with these 6 years. But when they look at the blood pressure, it's still comparable actually, but the carotid intima media thickness is better with adrenalectomy. But when they look at the carotid bifurcation in intima media thickness, it is comparable. So, the 2D echocardiogram of the patient last month, the ejection fraction was 69%. There is concentric hypertrophy with normal wall motion. The concentric hypertrophy, we don't know if it is purely from the blood pressure uncontrolled along the way or because of the remodeling of the cardiocyte by the circulating hyperaldosteronism. So these are my insights on the case. This will be discussed by our experts eventually. First, unilateral adrenalectomy in this patient with bilateral PA led to clinical and biochemical improvement. Systemic hormonal unloading, or SHU, leads to alleviation of hyperaldosteronism, thus making it easier for BP and electrolyte control. With still an active contralateral adrenal, symptomatology like high blood pressure, low potassium recurred in this patient who stopped her spironolactone. Although studies have shown that surgery has a better outcome, medical therapy in the long term in patients with primary aldosteronism has comparable cardiovascular marker results like CMT regression in the long-term follow-up. So this now case is open for discussion. First, I would like to call on Dr. Troy and then Dr. Lela and then our guest panelists. Troy?
Thank you, Lani. I think in the interest of time, I may not say too much, but I think just to highlight that patients with spironolactone, we should try to stop the potassium supplementation because they can actually get hyperkalemic. So just be a bit careful with that. And yes, I think some patients with bilateral would benefit. I think quickly looking at the ABS results, I'm not sure about the cortisol units, but it looks like the left is in, which explains why the aldosterone levels in the left and cortisol levels were high, but the right were not. So likely this was a bilateral case, and surgery does occasionally benefit some of these patients. Yeah, but they will need mineralocorticoid blockade after that if it's not cured. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Lela?
Yes, I do agree with, I quote what Troy has mentioned. I think in terms of the bilateral conditions, there are role of unilateral adrenalectomy, especially if one is much more higher in terms of the aldosterone production over the other. And but it does recur over time, like we have seen from Professor Young's talk. I think we'll get Professor Young to comment on the subsequent to get subsequent input, Prof?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm personally convinced that there is a role for debulking. And by that, I mean, as you said, when it's asymmetric adrenal production of aldosterone, and if the patient has severe PA and management has been problematic, I think this is a role for debulking the factory that's making aldosterone. And again, this is assuming you have access to expert laparoscopic adrenal surgeons. This is really a straightforward procedure. Whereas complete bilateral adrenalectomy, I think that really is a bridge further along the management path. And I can only think of one case where I've undertaken that in a patient with primary aldo. That was a patient with severe PA in a patient who was quite young.
Thank you, Professor Bill. Professor Young. How about Professor Georgina? Do you want to comment on the case?
Thank you very much. So we tend, as you also mentioned, to dose the patients with the maximum spironolactone, and when it's really insufficient, as well as the other medication as a last resort. We also had a couple of patients where we performed the debulking in Dresden. They proved to have a better controlled blood pressure in the following years, but at the follow-up 5-6 years later, the blood pressure started to increase again. So we also support this in cases with really resistant hypertension that is poorly controlled. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me see.
Maybe I'd like
Yep.
Maybe I'd
Go
like to ask Prof. Bill Young, because your case was on spironolactone for many years, and when the cardiologist stopped, the symptomatology recurred, which is expected. But I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, in Professor Young's experience, has any of the patients on medical therapy for many years, do they ever go into remission? So I just had one case over many years. The patient was on spironolactone, and the blood pressure started dropping, and I reduced the dose quite significantly from 100 or even 150 a day of spironolactone, and had to go all the way down to 25. So I'm just wondering in his experience whether there were cases of remission spontaneously over the years. Sorry of me, any of you had experience of such cases?
In this case, in my case, she was started on 100 twice a day in the early years, but now she just need a smaller dose. I don't know if remission is on the way because she's just requiring 25 BID 3 times a week.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if we see her more years, what will happen to her course.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you back. I think we can conclude. Thank you very much, Dr. Troy and Dr. Alela. Thank you. And Professor Bill Yang. Thank you. And Dr. Georgina.